Welcome to Talkex, Ordinary to Extraordinary. On the show, we have an individual who talks about heart and mind, the combination, the integration of the heart and mind. He is a transformational CEO. He has worked across many regions, and today he will bring insights from his personal and work life to guide you on how you can move the next level up. On the show, we have the amazing, outstanding, handsome individual, John Iossifidis. Welcome to the show, Talkex, Ordinary to Extraordinary. My name is Rohit Bassi, your host for the show. You mentioned it earlier, and I've seen you mention it even when I met you earlier on. This was a number of years ago. I've seen it in a number of places you write this as well, purpose-driven. And I see that Elisa, your wife, also is that purpose-driven. So I always have this thing about people say purpose-driven, but what does purpose-driven mean to them? So what is your outlook, your view of purpose-driven? Because there are people who are like 50, 60, they still don't feel they have a purpose. And they're like, have I done something wrong? Or even people at a younger age are saying, but I don't know what my purpose is. And so greater confusion comes in. So what would you say is purpose-driven?
I think, Rohit, for me, it's actually the way that you feel that is adding value and connects you with the greater society or yeah. It sounds soft and it sounds fluffy, but the universe at large.
Okay. Yep.
And you're starting to get into spirituality, and I don't mean religion. I do mean spirituality. And in that context, how you feel that you're actually connected in a much greater sense to the world, and the way that I can contribute to that is my personal purpose, is to, as I said, make a significant, meaningful, positive impact on those around me.
So let's say I come to you and say, John, I don't know what my purpose in life is. What would you help me, or how could you possibly guide me? Maybe I won't get the purpose, but even think about the purpose in life.
What do you love doing?
Okay, this is what I love doing. I love coaching. I love training, especially when we're talking about people being able to communicate in front of masses of people, or even in a group of people, because that's the foundation of everything which we do on a day-to-day basis, is how we communicate. So that's what my answer would be.
So then does your purpose revolve around
that thing? Okay, makes sense.
And it's got to be around the things that you love doing, right? Because you've got to be passionate about what you're actually doing. And if my personal purpose doesn't align with my corporate purpose, then I'm not going to succeed, right? So the two do actually need to be aligned.
Okay. That's very interesting, because I was going to ask you that, but you've answered the question for me. Are there times where you feel you're not in your purpose, you're not aligned with your purpose? Does that happen to you?
Yeah. There are times where you're actually spending time and energy on things that you actually are wondering how it is, in the grander scheme of things, adding value to what your purpose in life is, what your mission is, what you're trying to achieve, etc. But sometimes they're things that you actually have to do, right? They're unpleasant things, and you actually have to do them.
It's such a simple saying, yet so powerful, and frustrating when you're in that moment where you can't find the purpose, or you're encountering rough and tough times.
But and I'll come back down to again. That's where I actually meditation becomes really helpful for me to process. Elisa, who is a wonderful support, because we're really aligned on many things. We're aligned in terms of wellness. We're aligned in terms of giving each other space and support for each other's careers. We're aligned in all of those sorts of things. But one of the things that she she mentions to me is you never talk about being under stress. But I have a few tells, right? One of the tells is I will grind my teeth when I'm sleeping. I haven't been grinding them for a while now, so that's actually okay. The other one is I'll actually meditate more to help me process things. So I'd normally meditate 5 to 7 days a week. If I'm actually under different types of stress or just need to, self-reflect more or introspect more, I would actually probably end up doing twice a day. And it's only 15 to 20 minutes a day, right? But you actually come back and you feel energized and refreshed and relaxed. I think that's the big way for me to deal with things. But I also have another rule of life, and I actually, I mentioned I'm Libran, and I mentioned that I'm, balance is really important, and balance doesn't mean equity, by the way. Balance actually does, you can still be in balance like this. The scales can be in balance, and I need to actually have balance in 4 areas of my life, and the first one is about being true to myself. And giving myself time to do the things that I need to do and love to do, and that can be things like making sure I have time to work out 5 days a week, making sure that I do things that I actually enjoy. An example would be, having a night out with a few of my mates. An example would be, the time to read or just, do nothing. You just need to be true to yourself. I used to compete in motorsport, did so for 10 years. Believe it or not, you're in a high stress environment, but in many ways it's actually quite meditative, because you are not thinking about anything else.
Just being there.
Right? If you do, you die.
You're still here.
And the point is, the point there is, you've got to be able to do the things that actually give you pleasure and joy and those sorts of things. So that's number one, be true to yourself. I think number 2 is about time and with family and friends. And that community of family and friends are there, and you should never have any regrets in that part of your life. So there may be something that somebody has done to tick me off, and I very quickly, again, it's part of it's not reacting, it's responding. I actually sit there and think, in a month's time, in a week's time, in a day's time, am I actually even going to remember what it was that upset me? Right? So you just don't hold on to those sorts of things. You actually let those sorts of things go. And I'm not willing to have regrets in that regard. I'm not willing to have regrets when it comes to, at the end of my career, or not career, at the end of my life, to be sitting, on my deathbed, to I wish I hadn't treated this person that way, or I wish I'd actually reconnected with such and such. That's really, really important to me. So, I'm an only child, but family and friends are incredibly important, and that circle is really, really important. The third element is really about career, and making sure that you're doing what you love to do, feeling like you're contributing. For me, it's hugely important that I'm learning as much as actually contributing. I've got it, maybe not as much, but you're actually, learning. And you've got to learn every day, and that you're actually having that impact that you actually want to have. And the fourth one is community, right? And you need to feel that you're actually giving back in a broader context. And I've done that through sitting on charity boards. We've done that through any number of activities in terms of the way that you give your time, or have a broader impact in terms of what you're doing. So, I need to have balance between those things, and perhaps some of the tougher times in my life have been, if one of those things is out, you're still okay. If 2 of them are out, you're sort of feeling out of kilter. If 3 of them are out,
then it's completely.
Then you're really in trouble, right? So you got to really try and work on making sure that you're in balance across those 4 areas.
Okay.
And that's how I try and live my life in a broader context. And that's where, back to the first one of me, wellness, well-being, and being true to myself. It becomes really important as well, and you've got to eliminate those self-limiting beliefs and actually be positive about what you're trying to do.
So we're going to come to that being true to yourself in a while, because that's where I would like to close it. But before we go to that, Talkex is something which is sponsored by Exceed College, and you've done your MBA as well. Exceed College focuses on getting MBAs, PhDs, and all of these things. There's a lot of things which we see on social media about how education will not get you anywhere. And when I look at those things, I just start wondering, is that really true? My question to you is, how important is ongoing education, ongoing learning? Because that was a third element you spoke about.
Yep, I think it's critical. The day you stop learning is the day that you start to go into decline. Yep. Learning isn't about what we were taught when we were kids at school, which is to regurgitate a book. Learning is about to think and solve problems and give you insights to solve problems in a logical way. Different inputs about learning actually help you do and solve problems in a logical way. I think it's critical. There's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something. I wouldn't say I'm a voracious reader of articles as opposed to books. But I do have books that I'm reading, and they can be ranging from, a McKinsey book on what are the best CEOs do at the moment, to a book on food for life, which has been written about, from an author about longevity, to... And
on those occasions where I send you articles, can you read this? What do you think?
Well, exactly, right? So they can actually range.
Because whenever I send you one of my articles, you always have this very different perception of how to look at it, saying, like you said, you're liberal. You say, I see where you're coming from. What about A, B, C, D? You're just like, okay, I never thought about that part. So it's interesting when you do give that feedback to me. It's good. So I'm going to send you more articles.
I don't believe that I have the answers, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think one of the things that has made me successful in terms of what I do is not necessarily having the answer. It's asking the smart question. Okay? If you came to me like you did a moment ago, what's my purpose in life? I can't give you the answer to what your purpose in life. I can actually only ask you a series of questions to help you identify what that would actually be. And it's the same in business, right? My kids get frustrated at me at times when they come to me with this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm thinking, and my response would be typically like something along the lines of, have you thought about? And it makes them think about something different. It doesn't give them the answer. They may still stick to that same decision, but at least they've given consideration to the other elements. So that's a big one.
We're coming to the end of the interview, so we're going to look at more of the life, the mental wellness and spirituality side of things. And not religious, agree with you completely over there. Mental wellness, spirituality, being true to yourself, to me it's like a combination, all of it one. They intertwine significantly together. In your experience, in your truth, what you have seen, how would you say it's extremely important to have this established in your life, to look at this on an ongoing purpose, on an ongoing time? Or is it just like, I'll do it once a week or twice a week, or it's like once a month kind of thing? Think about it.
I think it's constant, and I genuinely believe that at the end of the day, your wellness mental, physical, spiritual, is totally interconnected. And I've seen too much, experienced too much, which is unexplainable for me to actually sit there and say that it doesn't exist or that. I have to believe that there is a connectedness to things that is more than just random, and those self-check-ins are really important for me, and actually check-ins with Alyssa and that we actually do that quite regularly.
Okay.
Hugely important, and they're not separate, right? Science has now proven gut-brain connection and mental wellness and well-being. So there is, the science has proven the connection now beyond any doubt. I used to espouse healthy body, healthy mind. And now it's John's words of 50 years ago are true today. And I think I actually have always experienced it in the context of, I know that when that actually happens for me, that I've actually got more energy and I have more passion and clearer insight and things like that than I do when I let something go.
In a scenario where an individual is going through, and this is based on your experience and what you've learned through life, when someone is going through conflicts, this is conflicts, be it in the relationship or being at work or generally in life, what kind of guidance would you give them? How could they manage themselves better? Because everyone is unique. Everyone, those beliefs which stop you, they are over there. What could you say to them which will make them consider to understand this too shall pass?
I think one of the other, I don't want to use it as tools because it's ingrained in me, so I'm not sure if it's a tool or not, but I really genuinely try and put myself into somebody else's shoes and demonstrate my understanding of what it's like to be in their shoes. So in jargon, it's active listening and active and demonstrating understanding of that. Right. If I've demonstrated that to you, I then have the right. If I've demonstrated to you that I understand where you're coming from, what your objectives are, what your concerns are, I then you will actually then give me the opportunity to be able to express my views and concerns.
Very true.
Right? Far too often, though, we don't listen to understand. We listen to make our point, or actually we're waiting for a pause so that we can get our next point across. Right? So in terms of conflict, I think you actually do need to be able to put yourself into somebody else's shoes. I think the other element, at all times, you've got to treat people with dignity. At all times, and it doesn't matter whether you've got the power in the situation or whether you don't have the power in the situation. You have to treat people with dignity. Even in the most difficult of situations, you've got to treat people with dignity. And I've made judgments on hiring people with how somebody. We were having a cup of coffee because you do an interview over a cup of coffee and relax cup of how they've treated the waiting staff. How they've spoken to them or things like that. And sometimes it's cultural, but it's not necessarily a culture that fits within the organisation or that and the culture that I'm trying to have around me.
This thing about dignity, my father used to always say, one of the things, being from obviously born and brought up in India he was, and he moved to the UK. He said one of the things which he appreciated about the Western world or people around there was dignity of labour. It doesn't matter at what level you are. You go into a shop, doesn't matter if you're the richest of richest or the person who's cleaning the road, that person behind the counter will treat you the same. And the pricing is the same. There's no because you're richer or you're poor or you're not allowed in or you're not. So that's something which is always stuck in my mind, is that dignity is very important wherever you go. And when I'm meeting people, especially we're talking about the offices and the office boy comes in, I have a tendency to ask them, what's your name? How are you doing today? And they're like, is he talking to me? And I never used to do that until my former wife, in my early years of our marriage, she taught me that. Because I did not know, it was not that I was being disrespectful, it was just, I was not aware how an impact it has on another person. It lights them up for that moment.
See, one of the things that, again, and perhaps if you're leading an organisation, right, and you're trying to build the right culture, dignity is a big part of it. And if you were trying to transform an organisation, you were trying to build an organisation around a realisation that people are the most important asset that you actually have, because everything that we do is delivered through people.
Yes.
And if you have unhappy people or people that feel undignified, is that the right word?
If it's not, we just made one up.
Feel disrespected. What sort of level of service or are they going to give, or commitment do they actually have to the organisation, or level of service do they actually give to the client that they actually come into? So, one of the things professionally, I like to say that I'm a transformational leader.
Yes.
And I'm a transformational leader in terms of developing, cultural transformations, very strong strategically, but winning hearts and minds of the people around me. So they end up actually wanting to, they believe in the purpose of what we're doing, the direction that we're actually going, but that they matter and can actually make a huge difference in terms of what we do. And it still comes back down to dignity of labour, as you described it.
Hearts and minds. We'll close on that, because what I've noticed about you is obviously from a work perspective, but even when I've met you and I've seen people interact you in the scenarios, I always sense that you have won people's hearts and minds. That's what I've always seen. That. So,
thank you.
Thank you, John, for being here. Truly, truly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Rohit. I really appreciate it as well. Enjoyed the session, and thank you, guys.